up in the game, head up in the game, head up in the game, whoa. In the moment, boy, it's like a dream. Yeah, playing for the prize and we got a team. Yeah, passion in my veins, but we never leaves. So what I got to feel when you run the league? Game time, hey, game time, whoa. Game time, hey, game time, whoa. Head up in the game, head up in the yeah. Head up in the game, head up in the yeah. Game time, hey, game time, whoa. Game time, hey.
Welcomed on set now by captain of the Wildcats, senior Trey Demps.
Welcome back, everyone, to Game Time. I'm here today with my guest, former co-worker, friend, colleague, whatever you want to call it, Northwestern legend, I would say.
You say that. You say that.
Trey Demps, everyone. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, bro. Thanks for having me on, bro.
Hey, man, it's a blessing, man. Thank you so much for coming on this show. It's a truly to see you again, man. It's been a minute.
I know, bro. I miss you in the days back in the office, man, in the green room, kicking it. Talking about sports, bro. I miss you, bro.
Oh, man. I miss those days, man. We used to have so much fun in the studio, kicking it, man, you know. So I wanted to have you on the podcast, man, because you have a story, you know. You play overseas, you play college, you know. Father, play basketball as well, you know. So the first question is, you know, you move frequently around the world because your father's name was Demps. How was it moving around like that?
Yeah, so I was born kind of around the time like that my parents graduated from college. And so, my dad was working out for NBA teams. My mom was just graduating. And so I was born in Portland, moved down to the Bay, I think when I was like 2 months old, and was there for about 9 or 10 years. Moved frequently within the East Bay area. My dad was playing. He retired, I think, when I was 8 or 9, so I didn't get to see him like a ton. My first 8-9 years of life, and I lived with my mom, and but I always knew, like, I always looked up to him. I knew he was playing and doing his thing, and so would see him in the summer times. But I remember like one of my first memories, like when it comes to basketball, was when I was like 5 or 6 years old. I was in the gym with my dad. He was playing like in a pickup run in the Bay, and I was shooting on the side baskets, and like I was like this close to making it, and I like just kept shooting on a 10-foot rim. And then like after my dad was done playing, I finally like made it, and like that joy and that like sense of accomplishment, like he took me to get ice cream and all that. Like that was like one of my first memories for real, like, and like from there I was hooked, you know what I mean? Like just working out, like was somebody who just, like breathed, ate, slept, everything was basketball for me.
Did you get a chance to make any friends by moving around like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to like make like deep friendships, you know what I mean? Like, cause I was, like I went to like a few different schools, like, cause I moved in different parts of the Bay Area when I was young. Then I moved to Portland when I was in 4th and 5th grade, then moved back to the Bay Area for a few years. And then like, I was never anywhere more than 4 years. And so, it was hard to make like those deep, like lifelong relationships. And so, through the game of basketball was really kind of like how I made my friendships, teammates and AAU teams and school teams and stuff like that. So I mean, it definitely was like you had like a wider network, but you just didn't have like as a deep of a relationship with that network.
Did you want it to be like your father, like moving around like that?
Yeah, so like it's interesting. Like what I like, even to this day, I love traveling. Like I love being in hotels. I love being in the airport because that's just like my comfort zone. You know what I mean? And so like and my goals were obviously to play at the highest level. I wanted to be, like an NBA great. I think that's every kid's dream. My favorite player growing up was Allen Iverson, and then after Allen Iverson, when my dad worked for the Spurs, it was Tony Parker. And so, yeah, man, like that was the goal. That was the dream, was to play in the NBA or play at the highest level I could possibly play college, all that, and take advantage of the game for real.
So now we get into high school now. So you attended Ronald Reagan High School in Texas, in San Antonio, Texas, where you was All-State twice, averaging 19 points and 4 assists. When did you know that the game was getting serious?
So before that, I did my first year of high school in California. I moved with my dad my sophomore year. So I was at a kind of a smaller school. It was called Concord High School, and it was honestly probably one of the funnest years of my life, or my basketball life, I should say. Like, playing at Concord High. It was kind of like a mom and pop school. It wasn't a big name. We made the playoffs for the first time in 25 years. I was a freshman. We had a big crowd following that year from the student section, and so that was kind of the first experience that I got to play on a public stage, because before that it was all AAU, and you go to an AAU game, it's mostly just parents and family members and maybe close friends, relatives, and all that. So the first time I got to play on a bigger stage, I'll say, was my freshman year. And then when I moved to San Antonio, Texas, I went to a bigger school. It was a 5A school. It was we had talent. We had guys who went D1 and all that. And so that was kind of the first time I got to really be around on a daily basis players that were my age level, that were aspiring for the same things. And so it was a great experience. I'm really appreciative for my basketball journey. And then obviously, as you mentioned, All-State twice. Had to, as a sophomore, I was new to the school, and so I had to prove myself. You know what I mean? People knew who my dad was, and there was some hype around my name. And I had a pretty good sophomore year, and then when my junior year came, it was time for me to kind of be the guy of the team. And so it ended up working out well for me, and eventually went on to play D1 basketball.
How many colleges recruited you?
So I was pretty under recruited. From my freshman, sophomore, even my junior year. During my junior high school season, I think I had 3 offers, and they were all one was from the University of Pacific, which was my dad's alma mater. One was from University of San Francisco. My dad knew the coach, and then another one was from Oral Roberts. And so a lot of them were my dad's connections. So in my mind, I didn't even have a real D1 offer where a coach who didn't know my dad saw me and was yeah, we want to invest in him. So I went to a Nike camp going into my senior year, and it was that was my last chance. That's your last chance to be evaluated by college coaches. And I trained really hard, worked really hard in preparation for that. And then after that camp, which was in Cleveland, that was kind of when a lot of some of the schools Northwestern was my first Power 5 offer, Colorado, Stanford, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, so on and so forth started to come, because I was playing against players that were in the top 100, and I was holding my own.
So why Northwestern?
Man, I think it was just the opportunity to do something that had never been done before. Even when I was a kid growing up, I always wanted to play on the I always wanted the kids that weren't as good, and I wanted to kind of be the guy and be the kind of the underdog and beat the Goliath in a sense. Even from the time I was 9-10 years old, I just always gravitated towards just being the guy. And a lot of that was my dad would put me in those positions of trying to teach me to be the top the player that was relied upon. If I played well, we would win. If I didn't play well, we would lose. And so I think seeing that opportunity at Northwestern, a team that had never made the NCAA tournament, the only team in Power 5 to never make the NCAA tournament at that point in time, to build something that had never been done before, I think was definitely a lure for me. And then also the academics too. I was real interested in journalism as a whole, and I knew about the journalism school at Northwestern was top notch, Medill, and so I think just those two things, and obviously being in the city of Chicago, was ultimately why I chose to go to Northwestern.
So the 2011-2012 season, you suffered a shoulder injury. What was the rehab like?
So I suffered that. I was actually playing in a workout in LA kind of during the break. So I went to summer school, and then there was a 5-week break between the summer school session and when classes started. So I was in LA working out with some NBA guys, and I was going up against guys like John Wall, Paul George, Reggie Jackson. So we were playing ones, and there were some other guys too that were college, but those were notable names. And so I was doing a one-on-one drill, and Reggie Jackson was coming at me, and he made a really good move, and I stuck my arm out to just try to slow him down, and then I just felt something in my shoulder pop, and I went. The guy I was staying with in LA took me to the doctor, got an MRI, saw it was a torn labrum. And with the torn labrum, though, you have the option to play through it or to get surgery. And it was in my left shoulder, it wasn't my shooting shoulder. So I opted originally to try to play through it. But then when I came back to campus, it just kind of progressively got worse. It really affected my ability to be physical, on my drives, defensively. I was kind of always laboring it. And so my first game I started, played awful. Then I actually got benched the next 3 games. We played in the Charleston Classic, won the championship there, and then I got spot minutes the next few games. And so I decided, I think the best route for me was to get a medical redshirt, because you could still play 7 or 8 games. And so I think after my 5th game playing, me and my family decided it was best for me to get a medical redshirt.
Was it hard for you just to sit out like that, knowing you can help your team progress and do more?
Well, honestly, I wasn't helping. That was why I kind of got the red shirt. So it was kind of the first time that I had failed. It was the first time that I had not met my goal. Obviously some of that stuff is subjective, but up until that point, I was always one of the top guys, a starter. And so that was the first time that I got benched. That was the first time that a coach put somebody in instead of me. And so it was a big, reflection point. I think just as a player, understanding I got to do more than just scoring to, be able to play. And I got to defend. I got to be a better, rebounder. I got to be a better team defensive guy. I got to be able to get over screens. I got to be able to do all those little things, right? And so, it was a time for reflection. I mean, even, personally too, it was I'd put all my eggs into one basket, and my identity was surrounded in basketball. And it was an opportunity for me to kind of reflect and think, man, there's got to be more to life. And I'm a Christian now, and so it was kind of that time where I became a Christian. And, a lot changed from the time that I redshirted to the time, my redshirt freshman year, the 2012-2013 season, just personally and on the floor.
What was your welcome to the Big Ten moment?
Woof, man. I think that the Big Ten was as good as it's probably ever been when I played. Talk about 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, you had Wisconsin make 2 Final Fours. You had Michigan State make a Final Four. You had, Michigan was a top team in the country. Michigan went to the national championship in 2012 when Trey Burke was there. So, there were so many good players. I felt like my senior year, it wasn't as strong, and then the following couple years, it wasn't as strong. But, I would say my freshman year, when we played that Indiana team that had Victor Oladipo, Cody Zeller, Yogi Ferrell, Jordan Holes. I think they had Christian Wofford. Man, just that. Whew, they were big. At the guard position, they were quick. They were fast. had great decision makers, and then their forwards were just like big, man. Like going up, like having a guard like Christian Wofford. I'm a 2-3 whatever wing. I mean Christian Wofford's 6'7", 6'8". You know what I mean? And like going up against like Trey Burke, having to guard him. Like to me he was the hardest player to guard. Just the way that they ran their offense, the spacing, his ability to make decisions out of the ball screens, like. I can't pinpoint one. I would say though, like the hardest player, the player that like used to attack me and the team that used to like target me a lot when I was younger was Roy Devin Marble at Iowa. Like he would and he was like 6'6", 6'7". Man, he was a bucket. Like he used to do me dirty. Like I ain't even gonna lie. Like. I remember there was one possession we were playing Iowa. Like he brought the ball up, they iso'd like the whole side of the court, put him on the block, and like he just put me under the basket, like easy layup. Like so, man, it's hard to like pinpoint like one moment, but like Roy Devin Marble was definitely for me the hardest player to guard because he was a little bit stronger than me. He was long, he was athletic, he was like. Multifaceted, could score in all different ways at all three levels. So yeah, I would say he was like the guy that I always had a problem against for real.
So the 2015-2016 season, your senior year, your last go round, you guys didn't make it to the NCAA tournament. You guys was 2011, lost overtime in a Big Ten tournament against Michigan. That was your last game. How did it feel mentally knowing like this was it?
Man, that was I mean, because we had really started to play well at the end of the season, and I went through a huge drought like midway through conference. We had lost Alex Ola, our starting center, for like 6 or 7 games that really hurt us. I think we only won one game during that stretch, and yeah, man, it was tough, because we felt like we had a team that was good enough to make it to the tournament or at least make it to a postseason, which is crazy to think at 20-12 we didn't even make the NIT. But for some reason there was like a lot of like low major teams that didn't win their conference tournament that were at the top, and so like those teams got the automatic bid to the NIT. So it kind of got messed up, but for us, yeah, that Michigan game was, that was they had Derek Walton, Zach Irvin, Duncan Robinson, and that was a stacked team too, you know what I mean? And, it was an 8-9 game. We felt like we were just as good as them. They went off like in the beginning, and it was like 20-6 or something like that, and then we came back, and it was just back and forth. And so, it was a great game, but it was definitely disappointing because, we felt like we were good enough to play in the postseason. And for our season to end like that with the talent we had, especially in the backcourt with me and Bryant McIntosh, it was definitely tough.
And that year, that game too, man, like you just said, that game was crazy. Like, that was an offensive game right there. Duncan Robinson, I believe, led the Big Ten Conference in three-pointing that year. And you at that game, at the start of the game, coming off just threes. Offensively, you and Duncan Robinson going at it. And I would say that one of the part of that game, man, like, the defense on that, like the shot that Duncan Robinson made to tie the game up, I was like, wow. And it was great contested defense.
Yeah, we covered it well because we switched. I think it was like a flare into a rescreen, and like we covered it well, and we got a good contest. And he was well. It's Duncan Robinson though. You know what I mean? He's made probably over, I don't know the numbers, but he's probably made upwards of $100 million in the NBA. But like just shooting the basketball, but like he was well beyond the college three, and we got a good contest, and he tied the game up, and then ultimately Zach Irvin hit that pull up, off the zoom action from the corner, going to his right, which is another. It was just a lot of shot making. To your point, like it was a high level offensive basketball game, and like. You talk about, me and Duncan Robinson going at it. It wasn't going at it in the sense like that you would normally think of as like ISOs and pick and rolls. It's, me and him did a lot of our damage off the ball, off of down screens, off of multiple picks. And so, just credit to the coaches, that put us in positions to be successful offensively.
Yeah, so You graduated now. You out of college. You go straight into, you play with 4 different teams overseas. What was the pros and cons of playing overseas?
Man, it's a different game. You know, it's a lot more tactical. It's a lot more physical. It's a lot more half court execution. And you know, it's not like what everybody says it is. Like Americans are supposed to, you know, go get 20, 30 points. I mean, some countries like in Asia, it's like that. But I mean, usually like the leading scorer of some of these countries are like at 14, 15 points per game. And so, you know, like it definitely was an adjustment because I was actually trying to transition to being more of a point guard because I was kind of a 2 card when Brian McIntosh came into Northwestern. And so, you know, there was definitely like a big learning curve for me, especially because I played for a coach that was very, very tactical and, you know, wanted certain things done a certain way and certain ball screens at different angles with, you know, attacking certain players. So it was hard for me, like, you know, my first year especially. But I stuck with it and grew and had a great end of the season. And then came back with that same team. I was in Belgium my first year. Came back with that same team. Had a pretty good season. Went on to play at a higher level in Italy. That's kind of when the injury started to kind of take over.
So would you say, like, did you get to learn the language? Did you at least get to go out around the countries and stuff?
Yeah, I guess, I didn't touch on the off the course. I mean, off the course, it was amazing. You know, I would say arguably probably the best 4 or 5 years of my life, just being in that unique experience, learning different cultures, learning how other people think, you know, and it was great for our family too. My daughter was just born a little bit after my college career, and you know, she was 4 or 5 months with my wife going to Belgium. We all went together, like starting our family. You know, it almost felt like us against the world. You know, not that like anybody was against us, but like it was just us. We didn't have a community of people to walk alongside of us as a new family and new parents and newlywed. And so it was fun, like, you know, exploring the world together in a sense, because we lived like our first year where we were in Belgium. We were on the border of Belgium and France, and so we were close to Paris, we were close to London, we were close to Brussels, we were close to Amsterdam, we were like Luxembourg, all these, like we were kind of in the center point of Western Europe. And so like we would go explore on our off days, and you know, it was the time of our lives, you know, being able to like see the world in a sense. So I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Man, how was if you don't mind me asking, a lot of people, you know, tend to think about this. They think overseas you get paid more money than at actual league.
Yeah, I mean, college now, like I feel bad for some of these college guys because these college guys are getting bread. You know, they're going to be rookies playing in these countries, probably getting 8 times less than what they received in college. And so, like, yeah, I mean, you think like, you know, like a good high major guy, I don't know the exact numbers, but like is probably worth $500,000. Like as a rookie, you're probably making 30 to 50, if you're lucky, 50K a year. Like that's a significant pay decrease. But for me, I went from making 0 to that kind of money. So it was great. You know, it's like my first time ever getting paid playing basketball outside of like the stipend we get from the school.
Wait a second. Hold on. Wait a second. I was told something else. I was told that it's a bag overseas.
No, especially post-COVID too. Like, you know, they use COVID as an excuse to pay people significantly less. I would say like around 2012, 2011, like the money dropped significantly. Like what was it, the recession in 08, like there was bags. Like you know, used as a rookie making probably 150, 200 even as a rookie. But like post like 08, 010, 11, 12, and then I came in at like 16. Like yeah, it's like you had to like earn your stripes. Like, you know, even if you playing in the top leagues in like Germany, like some of those smaller teams are paying like 30K. You know what I mean? It's like, but if you do well there at that platform, then you you increase your value, just like anything in life. And so, like, yeah, there's like, you play for EuroLeague teams, there's a bag for sure. Like, if you play in Asia, but usually if you play in Asia, you got to go play in the league a little bit. Or you got to be just a straight bucket, like average like 20, 25 in college. But, like, for the most of us, it was like you had to, work your way from 40 to 60 to, maybe 80 to then after, year 4, year 5, it's like, all right, I can get a big bag for sure.
I created this podcast, man, for kids to know that don't put all your peas in one pot, and hearing your story, hearing your resume, hearing everything, you have a daughter yourself, you have kids, you're a coach, you're a mentor, like, and I know you teach your daughter, your kids, and everybody else, like, hey, becoming an athlete is fun, being an athlete is good and all that other stuff, but don't put all your peas in one pot, and kids have a tough time struggling with that. Their mindset when they come in is that we want to become an athlete, so, and this podcast talks about that, so in my research, I came across top 4 reasons why kids don't make it into sports. So number 1, unreliable coaches. Have you ever dealt with an unreliable coach?
I've been pretty fortunate. I probably didn't really deal with like screwed or, just rough coaches until I went overseas. Like I was fortunate, to have a dad that knew the right people to put me around to help me with my development. And so yeah, I was pretty, but I saw it, you know what I mean? Like I play against teams where these coaches are cursing out the kids, and they're letting their insecurities and their unmet expectations in their lives like get to a point where it's spilling out and they're taking it out on the kids that they're coaching now. And so it is unfortunate. It is unfortunate for sure. But I honestly, not really to answer your question.
Number 2, over-aggressive parents. Have you ever dealt with, as a coach or as an athlete, with the over-aggressive parent?
Man, I think all parents have good intentions. Like, if you're an active parent in your kid's life, you have a good intention of like wanting to see them succeed, right? And I don't believe like that there's all these parents are doing it for themselves. Like, I think they're most of the parents that I've seen, they have good intentions. I think it's just, again, like dealing with the trauma of their childhood is, they haven't like really dealt with it fully, and like their failures and the things that they went through, like that just hasn't been met or dealt with through therapy or whatever, or talking to people. Like, I think it like spills and oozes out with the way that they deal with their kids' youth sports experience, which is just really unfortunate, because at the end of the day, we're all people and we all have insecurities and different things that we're dealing with. And if you don't like deal with those things like head on, I think it can spill out into the way you like coach and handle your kids' growth and development.
Number 3, unattainable standards. So why I say that is because some students go through a thing where it's like they go into a coach, they go into like a workout, and then you see somebody that's running fast, jumping high, scoring the ball, dunking, all that other stuff, and they feel like we can't meet that requirement. We're not faster than this guy, we're not stronger than him, we can't jump higher than him. As an athlete or as a coach, have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, I mean, I think because it goes across multiple levels. It's like unrealistic expectations from yourself sometimes. I think it's good in a sense to be better than you, or not as good as you think you are, right? I think that there is a positive in that, because that shows like an ultimate self-confidence. But then, on the other side, there's these expectations from coaches that are just unreasonable. And I think a lot of times because they haven't seen it, they don't know what it looks like. They don't know what success looks like across the board. And then also, like you said, like we talked about with the parents, I think it's I think it's the same thing. It's a lot of ignorance out there just because they don't know, what's realistic. And I think the more that you can educate yourself, the more that you can put yourself around people who have experience, who are, high-level coaches, who have played at a high level, I think the better you'll be. And it just takes a level of humility. It's like for me, I'm not an expert at a lot of things outside of basketball. So if there's things that I don't know about, I'm going to go to an expert and somebody who does know.
Number 4, overall lack of encouragement and environment. So when I say that, when I went to TCU, the person who was showing me around told me that kids drop out their freshman year of college because they don't feel the encouragement around them. Like, they get homesick. And obviously when you leave home, you get homesick, you miss home, you miss mom, you miss pops or whatever, and you feel like the people around you is not encouraging you. Even in high school, man, like, you're stepping out of your comfort zone, leaving elementary school, going to a high school that you don't know, and you don't feel the welcome around, and, have you ever dealt with that?
It's a good question. I think culture is so important. It's not talked about enough. But I think there's a healthy level of like encouragement, being supportive, but also, especially for young people, especially this day and age, like holding them accountable and pushing them, like, because you can't have too much of one or the other, right? Because if you enable kids and it's too encouraging, but you're not being realistic and you're not challenging them, that's going to do them a disservice. But on the other end, if it's a hostile environment where you're too hard and you're too aggressive and you're discouraging, you're creating like a discouraging culture, then I think that also has a negative effect. So it's like, I think you can't, like, if you're not as a leader of a program, if you're not constantly like evaluating your culture, I think there's a problem. You know what I mean? Because you could always be better at one or the other, providing discipline, accountability, and all those things, and also doing a great job of creating a positive environment too.
So these questions right here is going to be very important too. So how many people do you think play high school basketball?
Man, I have no idea. I'm going to feel dumb trying to answer 200,000, 300,000.
So the number of students are 538,700. So keep that number in your head. How many people do you think play NCAA basketball?
4,000?
18,000. So that 538,700, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So percentage from that 538,700, percentage moving from high school to the NCAA, what's the percentage?
2? 1?
Getting close. It's 3%.
Okay.
So out of that 3%, what's the percentage to make it to the professionals?
Less than 1, I would think.
It's 1%. It's 1%. What do you think about those numbers?
I think it just shows you that, when you were talking earlier, like, I think there's this myth that when you put your eggs all in one basket or your peas all in one pod, that means you have to neglect everything else in life. Like, I think two things can be true. I think you can put all your eggs into one basket and go after something wholeheartedly, while at the same time, and this is something I wish I knew, while at the same time preparing for life after sport and making sure that you're doing everything that you can with the resources that you have to put yourself in a position to learn other things in life, so that when the ball does stop bouncing, which it does for everybody, that you'll be well equipped. I think that's the first thing I think.
So, do you think making it to the pros is the main goal of playing the sport that you love?
I think enjoying the process and leveraging it to your advantage. That's honestly, I think, whether that's leveraging it, obviously you want to love it. You want to enjoy the process and all that. But, like, leveraging it to your advantage in terms of the people that you meet and the relationships that you build, I think is the most important thing, because those relationships that you have in sport are going to help you in some way, shape, or form when your playing days are well over. And so, yeah, I think that's – and then obviously leveraging, making the most out of your career too while you're in it, So that's why I say just in general, leveraging it to your advantage.
So on May 10th, 2022, you had to make the most difficult decision of your life. You was battling hip arthritis. How did it feel to make that difficult decision to retire?
Well, I mean, that was kind of the day I made it public. I probably knew before. I mean, I think I look back at it like, I was a Christian. Like, God was as gracious with that process as humanly possible. And I think, it was like, there was phases of the retirement. It's not, a lot of people think it's like you wake up one day and it's like, all right, I'm done. But it's like you kind of almost like for a certain amount of time are like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, just because you have to be, because you got to provide for your family, and you got to, while you're trying to recover from an injury or while you're trying to find a job, you got to still, make ends meet. And so like you have to do other things. And so, I was fortunate enough to find broadcasting, and I felt like those same competitive juices and, like being able to like kind of like commit myself to something. And so that made the decision so much easier for me. And so, yeah, it wasn't, that day was like when I made it public, but like, I think prior to that, I kind of knew probably December 2021 that it was probably over for me, and just like my inability to, get out there and play, I kind of just knew.
So with all your trials and tribulations, are you satisfied at how your career ended?
100%. I mean, in hindsight, there's definitely things I would do differently, but I think the one thing I can, go to bed at night is, peacefully, is like I gave everything I had, 100% effort. I had a plan. I did my best to execute that plan. I, didn't take any shortcuts along the way. And, I think I maximize my, I'm a 6'2" shooting guard. That's not really a true point. And, like I feel like I maximized my career. I was a really good player in the Big Ten, and, had a career overseas. Would have played probably, if I didn't get injured, I would have had a 10, 12-year career overseas. And so, yeah, I'm definitely at peace with my career as a basketball player.
What's the message would you like to tell the young athletes?
I think, like I said earlier, I think life, I was thinking about this morning, like life is all about relationships. Like, honestly, like your resume and your work experience, it's all good. Like you should always get, experience and learn different things, and schooling. I'm not discrediting that, but like a lot of the things that you end up doing in your life, professionally especially, are from relationships. It's bigger than just applying on Indeed. It's bigger than just like a coach randomly seeing you if you're a kid, or a lot of it is just built on relationships. So it's how you treat people and how you represent yourself and your family, like that is paramount. That's the key across the board. And like a door will open based on a relationship that you made in the past, because you don't know where somebody that you're friends with, or maybe it's a friend's parent or wherever it may be, you don't know how that relationship could benefit you in some way, shape, or form down the line. So I think if you're an athlete, leveraging the relationships and treating people the right way, everybody, I think would be the biggest advice that I would give.
Amen. Amen. To everyone out here, thank y'all so much, man. Trey, brother, it's been a pleasure, man, to interview you. A pleasure to hear your story, to hear that you talk, and to give a message to the young athletes out here. I want to say to everyone, this guy right here is an inspiration. He's a great person, and to piggyback off to what he was saying, the ball will stop, but life won't. And keep pushing yourself. Don't put all your peas in one spot, in one pipe. It's more to life than just playing the game just playing sports, period, you know. And I would love to encourage more, and hopefully, you know, I want everybody to know that this podcast is that safe zone when you're going through it and knowing that what is next after life, because I know a lot of athletes go through that. So I want to say thank you again. Thank you to Intentional Sports once again for letting me come back. Austin, thank you again. Please like, comment, and subscribe, y'all. I love you all, and goodbye.
So what I got to feel when you run the league? Game time, hey, game time, oh, game time, hey.